It started with a ping at 3:17 a.m., a security alert from an app one never downloaded. That's when I realized someone had been watching me. My texts, my calls, even my private conversations, he saw everything. But the worst part? It wasn't a stranger. It was my husband. The buzzing of Riley's phone at 3:17 a.m. was not the usual chime of a text message or call. It was something far more alarming, the distinctive sound of a security alert. Her hand instinctively reached for her phone, half dazed from sleep, but something about the notification caught her attention. It was from an app she had never installed, Secure Track. The alert showed that her location data had been accessed. In a groggy state, Riley almost dismissed it, but curiosity tugged at her. This was the first crack in the foundation of her otherwise perfect life. As she sat up in bed, careful not to wake Eric, her husband, she could not shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in her chest. Eric slept soundly beside her, his back turned to her side as it had been lately. The blue light from her phone cast strange shadows on the bedroom walls. Riley scrolled through the unfamiliar app's interface, only to discover it buried deep in her phone's settings. It had been running silently in the background for who knows how long. Her heart raced as she studied the map that appeared on her screen. It showed her movements from the past week, her daily drive to the high school where she taught, her Thursday coffee runs with her friend Sarah, and even a secret trip to the jewelry store where she had been planning to buy Eric's anniversary gift. Riley's mind reeled as the implications of the discovery sank in. Someone had been tracking her every move, every private moment. The warm, safe feeling that her home once gave her suddenly felt suffocating. She slipped out of bed, moving quietly down the hallway toward the kitchen, passing her 14-year-old daughter Zoe's room, where the girl slept peacefully, unaware that her mother's world was about to unravel. In the cold kitchen light, Riley dug deeper into the app. It wasn't just location data that had been tracked, her text messages, call logs, and even her internet history had been monitored. Each discovery felt like a punch to the gut. She couldn't help but wonder, who would do this? Why? Her hand shook as she reached for a glass of water. The house was eerily quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator, making the whole situation feel even more surreal. Then, her phone buzzed again. Another alert, an audio recording in progress. Her blood ran cold. She frantically searched the app settings until she found a folder labeled Recordings. The latest file was from just 2 days ago, a conversation between her and Sarah at the coffee shop. Riley's own voice played back through the phone speaker, her words revealing a growing concern about Eric's recent behavior. She immediately stopped the playback, nausea rising in her stomach. Someone had been listening to her private conversations, tracking her every move. She closed the app and deleted the alerts, her thoughts racing. The footsteps she heard upstairs suddenly made her freeze. Eric was getting up to use the bathroom as he did most nights. But for the first time in their 15 years of marriage, those familiar footsteps made her skin crawl. Riley had to gather her thoughts and plan her next move. She couldn't confront him yet, not until she knew exactly what she was dealing with. Tomorrow, she would start digging into the web of secrets that had been spun around her life. But for now, she lay in bed, listening to Eric's steady breathing, her mind racing. What was he hiding? And why did he feel the need to track her every move? The only certainty was that she had to act, but not yet. Not until she understood everything. Just as she began to drift off to sleep, another text message from an unknown number popped up. Be careful what you look for, Riley. Some truths are better left buried. This chilling message would mark the beginning of Riley's quest to uncover the truth, a journey that would shake the very foundation of her life. As she got up the next morning, barely rested after the emotional upheaval of the night before, Riley began to go through the motions of her regular routine, trying to keep the unsettling events of the night at bay. But the tension in the house was palpable. And so, Riley's investigation was just beginning, one that would soon expose the depths of betrayal and lead her down a path she never imagined she would have to face. Riley had always prided herself on her organized, controlled life. As a high school teacher and a mother to a teenage daughter, her days followed a predictable rhythm: early mornings, teaching, coffee breaks with friends, and evenings spent with her husband, Eric. Her marriage, despite the occasional tension, seemed stable. Yet, when Riley woke in the dead of night to a strange notification on her phone, that sense of stability was shattered. The alert came from an app she didn't recognize, Secure Track. The message stated that her location data had been accessed, and Riley, half asleep, initially dismissed it as a mistake. But something made her stop and reconsider. Her fingers shook as she tapped the screen, revealing a hidden app in her phone's settings. This was not just an innocent tracking app, it had been running in the background for who knew how long. It wasn't just her location that was being monitored. Riley saw her movements, her daily routines, and even her most private interactions. The app had recorded her trips, including the one she'd taken without telling anyone, the secret visit to the jewelry store where she'd been planning to buy Eric a gift. Panic rose within her. Who was watching her? Why was she being tracked? The invasion of her privacy was immediate and personal. It felt as though her every move was being scrutinized, and her intimate moments with friends and family were no longer her own. But it didn't stop there. The app didn't just track her location, it had access to her personal messages, her call logs, and even private conversations. Riley's stomach churned as she saw the details of a conversation she'd had with Sarah, a close friend, at a local coffee shop. The app had recorded her words she thought were private, and it had even listened to the moments when she was discussing her husband's increasing distance. Her heart pounded in her chest. The sense of violation was unbearable. The more she uncovered, the more she realized that this was no ordinary situation. It wasn't just an intrusive app, it was an effort to control her, to invade her most intimate spaces. The implications were immediate. Someone close to her had to be involved. Riley's thoughts naturally turned to Eric. Could he have been behind this? Could her husband have used this surveillance to keep tabs on her every move? He had become distant lately, always working late or distracted by his phone. Could this app have been his way of keeping control over her, knowing where she was at all times, reading her private conversations, and even tracking her every step? Her mind raced with the possibilities, and a deep sense of betrayal washed over her. The more she uncovered, the more she realized how deep the deceit went. There was no turning back now. The spyware had already revealed so much, too much. Riley needed answers, but she knew confronting Eric without understanding the full extent of the situation would be reckless. She needed to investigate further, to see where this trail of secrets led. The more she uncovered, the more Riley's suspicions grew. The app had been installed with physical access to her phone, and that meant someone had to have access to her personal space. Could it have been Eric? Or was it someone else? The house felt unbearably still as Riley sat in the kitchen, the bright kitchen light making everything seem colder. Her eyes lingered on the phone as she clicked through the app's interface, now sure that it had been following her every step, even when she had been alone. With each tap, the app revealed more of her life, all laid bare for someone to see. The secret trips, the conversations she had thought were private, all of it was there, waiting to be discovered. Riley felt as though she was staring at the wreckage of her own life, the very fabric of her existence now compromised. The real question was, who had done this? Who had invaded her life so thoroughly? She felt nauseous as she scrolled through text messages, call logs, and even her browsing history. The app had been keeping track of it all. Riley clicked through the various sections of the app, her hands trembling with each discovery. Every new screen she uncovered only confirmed her worst fear. This was not just an app running in the background, it was a surveillance tool meant to control, monitor, and invade her personal life. She had been watched, every word, every movement. But the true weight of the violation hit when she saw the audio recordings. Her stomach turned as she found files of her conversations, some as recent as the day before. It felt as though someone was listening in on her every word, capturing her most private moments, and using them for who knew what purpose. Riley's mind raced as she thought about the implications. Was this just Eric's doing? Or was it someone else? Her suspicion of Eric's involvement only deepened. She had noticed his strange behavior lately, working late, always on his phone, distant, even secretive. Could he be the one who installed the spyware on her phone? Was it his way of keeping track of her, watching her every move? Riley's mind began to spiral with paranoia. She was no longer just a victim of a hidden app, she was now questioning everything she knew about her husband. The thought of him secretly monitoring her every action, reading her private messages, and listening to her conversations made her feel sick. Riley's growing suspicions reached a boiling point. It was clear that Eric had something to do with the spyware, but how far did his involvement go? She had to dig deeper. The information the app had revealed was just the beginning. Riley realized she was standing on the edge of a much larger web of deceit. She couldn't confront Eric yet, not until she had all the answers. Her mind raced with what to do next. She needed to gather evidence. She needed to uncover the full extent of the surveillance. As Riley sat there, her heart pounded in her chest. The privacy violations were beyond anything she could have imagined. And yet, the more she uncovered, the more she realized that she was just scratching the surface. There were more layers to this than she had ever anticipated, and with every new piece of information, the truth became more elusive, more dangerous. She had to be careful. Whoever was behind this, whoever had orchestrated this invasion, would stop at nothing to keep the truth hidden. Riley's resolve hardened. This was no longer just about a breach of privacy, it was about uncovering the lies that had been spun around her, about exposing the truth no matter what the cost. The stakes were higher than she ever could have imagined, and she knew that whatever happened next would change everything. Her next steps were clear, she would continue to investigate. But Riley knew the road ahead would be treacherous. With every step she took, the web of secrets would become harder to navigate. But she couldn't back down. Not now. The soft buzz of my phone at 3:17 a.m. didn't wake me fully, but it stirred me from my half-sleep. It wasn't the usual text or call alert, but the distinct pattern of a security alert. My heart skipped as I squinted at the unfamiliar notification, Secure Track Alert, Location Data Accessed. The app wasn't one I'd ever installed, and its presence alone was unsettling. The weight of the situation quickly became clear, someone had been watching me. Sitting up carefully to avoid disturbing Eric, I reached for my phone, trying to ignore the panic building in my chest. Eric slept soundly beside me, facing away as he usually did, his steady breathing only intensifying the eerie silence of the room. The blue light from my phone illuminated the space, casting strange shadows across our walls. I investigated the app, which wasn't visible on my home screen but buried deep within my phone's settings. The app, Secure Track, had been running in the background for who knows how long, tracking every move I made. My heart raced as I scrolled through the unfamiliar interface. A map appeared, showing every place I'd been in the past week, my daily drive to school, a coffee run with Sarah, even the jewelry store where I'd been planning to buy Eric's anniversary gift. My stomach churned as I processed the disturbing invasion of my privacy. I slipped out of bed, feeling the heat of panic rise within me. The house was quiet, save for the low hum of the refrigerator. My mind raced as I moved to the kitchen, where I continued to search through the app, only to uncover more disturbing information. It wasn't just location data being monitored. My text messages, call logs, and even my internet history had been meticulously tracked. The realization was suffocating, each new discovery a punch to my gut. Why? Who would do this? My hand shook as I reached for a glass of water, trying to steady myself. The quiet of the house was shattered by another notification, this time, a chilling alert, audio recording in progress. My blood ran cold. I frantically searched through the app settings until I found a folder labeled Recordings. The latest file was from just 2 days ago, my conversation with Sarah at the coffee shop. My heart sank as I heard my own voice on the playback. Eric's been different lately. Working late. Always on his phone. The reality of being watched, of having my every word and move monitored, left me feeling hollow. A noise from upstairs made me freeze, the footsteps, heading toward our bedroom. It was just Eric getting up to use the bathroom, as he often did at night. But for the first time in our 15 years of marriage, the sound of his footsteps made my skin crawl. I quickly closed the app and deleted the alert, the weight of the situation bearing down on me. I couldn't confront him yet. Not until I understood exactly what I was dealing with. Tomorrow, I'd start digging. Tomorrow, I'd start unraveling the web of secrets that had been woven around my life. The next morning, I struggled to keep my composure. I barely slept, my mind spinning with the implications of what I had discovered. As I packed Zoe's lunch, I noticed Eric downstairs in his crisp blue suit, preparing for another meeting. He barely acknowledged me, his eyes fixed on his coffee mug as he stirred it with mechanical precision. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers, to confront him about the app on my phone, about the betrayal I was beginning to uncover. But instead, I forced myself to remain calm. "Big meeting today?" I asked, my voice casual as I watched his reaction. "Yeah," he replied, his gaze not meeting mine. "The Morrison account needs extra attention." It was the same excuse he'd used 3 times in the past 2 weeks. The weight of his words hit me harder than before. I didn't believe him anymore. I knew now that something was terribly wrong. Zoe came bounding into the kitchen, her hair still damp from the shower. "Mom, have you seen my USB drive?" she asked. She looked between Eric and me, sensing the tension in the air. Her sharp eyes narrowed as she noticed the distance between us. Her expression shifted from casual to one of concern, and I felt a pang of guilt. She was too smart for her own good. I nodded absent-mindedly, trying to keep things normal. "Check the living room," I said. "You were working there last night." Eric stiffened as Zoe continued to watch us, her gaze darting between the two of us. "Dad, you promised to help me with my computer science project this weekend," she said. "Remember? The one on digital privacy and security?" I froze. The knife I was holding almost slipped from my hand. Eric's shoulders tensed visibly. "Sorry, sweetheart. Something came up at work. Maybe next weekend." Zoe's face fell, but there was more in her expression, something darker. "Right, work again." Her voice was tinged with suspicion, and for a moment, I saw the cracks forming in her innocence. She wasn't blind to what was happening. Eric kissed her forehead quickly and left, but the tension lingered in the air. Zoe turned to me, her expression sharp. "Mom, what's going on?" "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile as I continued to clean up. But Zoe wasn't convinced. She crossed her arms, a familiar gesture that signaled she was getting to the truth. "Dad's been weird lately," she said. "And you look like you haven't slept. Plus, you're washing the same plate for the 3rd time." I set the plate down, feeling a wave of guilt wash over me. "Just work stress," I said, trying to sound convincing. "You know how it gets during final season." Zoe wasn't fooled. "Mom, I'm 14, not 4, she said, her voice firm. "I know something's wrong." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Another secure track alert. I snatched it up, keeping it out of Zoe's sight, but not before she caught a glimpse of the message, "Audio recording saved, kitchen, 7:15 a.m. I barely registered the message. "I need to get to school early," I said, grabbing my purse. "Teachers' meeting. Will you be okay taking the bus?" Zoe's face hardened, but she didn't argue. "Sure, whatever." The drive to school was a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd uncovered, about the layers of betrayal that were slowly being revealed. When I parked in the school lot, I pulled out my phone to call Sarah. She worked in IT security and could help me make sense of the spyware. But before I could dial, a new text arrived from the unknown number: "Careful who you trust, Riley. Sarah might not be the friend you think she is." My blood ran cold. How did they know I was about to call Sarah? My phone must have been compromised, accessing more than just my location and messages. I looked around the parking lot, feeling exposed, as though I were being watched. As I headed into the school, my mind raced. I couldn't trust my phone. I couldn't trust Eric. And I was beginning to realize I couldn't trust anyone, not even Sarah. But worst of all, I couldn't let Zoe be caught in the crossfire of this mess. That's when I made up my mind. I'd start digging deeper. Tomorrow, I would find out the truth about Eric, and whatever else he was hiding. The following afternoon, I tracked down a private investigator, Marcus Lee, hoping he could help me understand what was happening. His office was tucked between a laundromat and a Chinese takeout place. Marcus was withered, his face etched with experience, and he took one look at the screenshots I'd gathered from the spyware app and shook his head. "High-end stuff," he muttered. "Not something you'd find on the regular market." "Can you trace it?" I asked, trying to steady my nerves. "Already did," he replied, clicking through some documents. "The purchase was made 6 weeks ago, through a shell company. But here's the interesting part, the buyer used your home address for billing." My stomach lurched. Eric's involvement was becoming clearer. Marcus continued, clicking through more documents. "The shell company's been busy. Regular payments to a rental property in Oakwood Heights. Nice place, too expensive for a single person, unless, of course, someone else is helping with the rent." I didn't need him to say it. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. Eric. Vanessa. A photograph appeared on Marcus's screen.